Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephania Cox. Here are today's top stories. A new projection shows Trump is expected to win North Carolina. We take a closer look at three of the uncalled states with the closest races and what they could mean for the official presidential election. The state of Arizona has yet to finish counting votes. As more ballots are processed, the margin between Joe Biden and President Trump is shrinking, now to less than 0.5%. An automatic recount will begin if that margin drops to below 0.1%. Michigan's high voter registration rate could indicate that more people have registered than the number of people who can legally vote there. That's as an analysis shows more than 10,000 deceased people have cast ballots in the state. The Secretary of State said in an earlier media briefing there would be a smooth transition to a second Trump administration. He also detailed foreign policy updates with nations like China, Brazil, and Taiwan. And both Republican and Democratic Senate leaders are re-elected to their positions. But it still remains unknown who will become the majority or the minority leader of the Senate. North Carolina is still finishing up their counting, but as it looks now, Trump's likely to win the state. Today, Decision Desk called the state a Trump victory, as well as a win for Republicans, since it looks like Republican Senator Tillis will hold on to his seat this year. NTD's Melina Weiskup has more election updates for us.
A new projection by Decision Desk expects a Trump victory in North Carolina. The organization also projects Republican Senator Thom Tillis will be re-elected. Right now, Tillis has a little over a 1% lead. Democrats still have something to celebrate. Governor Roy Cooper is looking like he'll stay in office this year. As it now stands, he has a strong lead over Republican candidate Dan Forest. North Carolina officials have said they won't have final results until later this week. As it now stands, there are 7 states that NTD has not yet called because of recounts or other legal disputes. Some of these states' results are within extremely small margins. Taking a look at 3 states with the closest margins. Georgia is in the middle of a recount right now. Biden has a narrow lead of 49.5%, with Trump at 49.25%. Arizona has a lawsuit open now, and there's also a 0.5% margin between the candidates. Biden leading at 49.47% and Trump at 49.02%. And Pennsylvania also has both candidates at 49%. A larger margin there, with Biden at 49.76% and Trump at 49.9%. It's also another state where the Trump campaign has an open lawsuit. That means, along with Trump's newly expected win in North Carolina, if he manages to win over Georgia's 16 electoral votes, Arizona's 11, and Pennsylvania's 20, that would lead to 276 electoral votes for Trump. That's merely a projection based on the way things are looking in each of the uncalled states so far. Reporting by Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
Arizona is still counting its ballots a week after Election Day. As more votes are processed, Biden's lead is narrowing significantly. Per state law, an automatic recount will be triggered if the final margin between the two candidates falls below 0.1%.
Multiple media outlets have called Arizona for Joe Biden, but the presidential race in the state is far from over. Arizona Governor Doug Ducey, a Republican, said in a news release on Monday the state has an estimated 75,000 to 80,000 ballots left to count, but he did not give a specific date for when Arizona will finish counting all ballots. The governor also said in the statement the president has the right to all available legal changes and remedies, and that he is confident they will be properly adjudicated. According to the Arizona Secretary of State's latest update on Monday evening, the vote margin between President Trump and Joe Biden is just 0.45%, with Biden leading by some 14,000 votes. According to Arizona state law, an automatic recount will take place if the final margin separating two candidates is less than 0.1%. As of now, Trump and Biden are only a few thousand votes away from reaching the 0.1% margin. A few counties, including Maricopa County, still have outstanding ballots. Maricopa County is now processing around 7,000 ballots a day, mostly those that need more time, including duplicate military and overseas ballots, braille ballots, and damaged ballots. Arizona is one of the 3 battleground states where the Trump campaign and the Republican National Committee have filed lawsuits. The lawsuit filed on November 7th alleges in-person votes were disregarded as a result of improper guidance provided by poll workers.
Georgia's Office of the Secretary of State says officials are investigating people who voted twice or voted illegally in the state. There are also other discrepancies, like nearly 8,000 provisional ballots from military members that didn't come back in time.
An official at Georgia's Secretary of State's office says that some people did illegally vote in the state. He says he expects an investigation to find that double voters and those who do not qualify to register have voted in Georgia.
Let me be perfectly clear on another point. We are going to find that people did illegally vote. That's going to happen. There are going to be double voters. There are going to be people who did not have the qualifications of a registered voter to vote in this state. That will be found.
He said there will be an audit of the vote count and most likely a recount requested by the president. He noted, when the margins are this tight, every little thing matters. Under Georgia law, a candidate can request a recount if the margin by which one candidate leads is less than 0.5% of the votes cast. The margin is currently at just 0.2%. The request to recount must be made within 2 days of results being certified. All counties' results must be certified by Friday. After that, the state will have to certify its results by November 20th according to state law. 2 Republican senators representing Georgia have called for Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, a Republican, to step down. They've called his mismanagement and lack of transparency in handling the election at the state level unacceptable.
A coalition of attorneys general are joining the legal battle in Pennsylvania. They're seeking to overturn a ruling which accepts mail-in ballots that arrive late. In this key battleground state, Biden is leading Trump by less than 1 percentage point. NTD's Juliette Song reports.
10 state attorneys general filed a legal brief this Monday. The move is to urge the Supreme Court to overturn a decision by its Pennsylvania counterpart. Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmidt led the coalition, along with counterparts from 9 other states, including Texas and Florida. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court ordered an extension of mail-in ballots, that they are accepted up to 3 days after Election Day. Ballots received during this window, even without a postmark, would be counted as well. The attorneys general took issue with this. They argue ballots without postmarks can't prove they're sent before Election Day, and that the state Supreme Court overstepped its authority in this ruling. Former U.S. Solicitor General Ken Starr echoes their claims. In an interview with Fox News, he said the state legislature should decide the election rules, not the governor or the state Supreme Court. Pennsylvania's Democratic Governor Tom Wolf pushed for the deadline extension, citing potential delay in mail-in votes. His administration turned to the state Supreme Court after their efforts stuck in the state legislature, and the court ruled in his favor. Reporting by Juliette Song, NTD News.
After being out of the public eye for several days, President Trump took to Twitter to say his campaign is making progress. He expressed confidence that he will ultimately be declared the winner of the 2020 election. In an all-caps tweet, Trump wrote, "We are making big progress. Results start to come in next week. Make America great again." And then in another tweet, he wrote, "We will win." Trump also told his Twitter followers to watch for massive ballot counting abuse, a tweet that has been flagged by Twitter as disputed information. So far, Trump has mostly stayed out of sight as legal battles play out in key swing states. His last press conference was on November 4th. And in the Senate, Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer will remain party leaders, but the battle for control of the chamber continues.
Both senators were unanimously re-elected to lead their parties in the Senate, but it's still not certain who will be the majority leader and who will lead the minority. We won't know until one party wins control of the Senate, which is likely to come down to the January 5th Georgia runoff. After the announcement, McConnell said there's no cause for concern over Republicans challenging the election results.
Until the Electoral College votes, anyone who's running for office can exhaust concerns about counting in any court of appropriate jurisdiction. That's not unusual. It should not be alarming.
Likely referring to accusations that calls for investigations into election fraud is an attack on democracy. He said after we find out which candidate is certified, the states and electoral college will determine the winner.
I don't think anything that's occurred so far interrupts an ordinary process of moving through the various steps that I indicated and allowing, if there is a new administration, it to work through the transition.
Saying all the transition steps will be taken at the appropriate time. Reporting by Grace Coulter, NTD News.
And if Republicans are able to keep hold of the Senate, Senator Lindsey Graham said he wants to set up a joint committee to investigate the impact mail-in ballots had on the election. And Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says there will be a smooth transition to a second Trump administration. This during a media briefing at the State Department.
There will be a smooth transition to a second Trump administration. All right, we're ready. The world is watching what's taking place here. We're going to count all the votes. When the process is complete, there'll be electors selected. There's a process. The Constitution lays it out pretty clearly.
Secretary Pompeo continued to say that the world should have every confidence that the transition necessary to make sure the State Department is functional, successful today, and successful with the president who's in office in January 20th will also be successful. He added that the world should have every confidence the United States government will perform its national security function, saying the Trump administration has exerted American leadership at unprecedented ways. He also spoke on the progress made in foreign affairs with countries like China, Israel, and Lebanon. And Pompeo says the Chinese Communist Party is the world's #1 threat to freedom. He spoke about American principles at the launch of the Ronald Reagan Institute Center for Freedom and Democracy earlier today.
Secretary Pompeo spoke about the importance of freedom and democracy. Calling the Chinese Communist Party authoritarian, brutish, and antithetical to human dignity and freedom, Pompeo said the CCP was the central challenge the Trump administration and America would face in the years ahead.
Every place that human freedom wants to flourish, the Chinese Communist Party is resisting it. And so each time we have a conversation at every level between the United States and China, we raise these issues.
Pompeo said he was confident the U.S. would overcome these problems and went on to say that he made sure all U.S. ambassadors would have China-related issues as a top priority.
My ambassadors, no matter where they are in the world, have China at the top of their list. So if you're an ambassador in the Democratic Republic of Congo or in South Korea, you know that the Chinese Communist Party is intent on impacting that country, and we are determined to make sure that we use our capacity to push back against that challenge.
Pompeo made clear that the U.S. required accountability, transparency, and reciprocity from China, going on to say that the party's atrocities in Xinjiang, Tibet, and elsewhere will not be tolerated.
No more illegal claims in the South China Sea. No more coercion and co-optation of American businesses. No more consulates used as dens of spies. No more stealing of intellectual property. And no more ignoring fundamental human rights violations.
Secretary Pompeo said this stance against the CCP required diplomatic as well as militaristic efforts, which is one of the reasons why the Trump administration made historic investments to enhance American armed forces. He also said the administration is continuing to strengthen international institutions like NATO to wake them up to the threat posed by the Marxist-Leninist CCP. Referencing Reagan, the Secretary of State said the innate desire for freedom, for personal autonomy, for human dignity rests in the souls of each of us. Pompeo said he put together the U.S. Commission on Inalienable Rights, which attempted to reground American foreign policy in these fundamental understandings about human dignity. He said policies must be grounded in a love of America, which will see America as a leader and its allies and the U.S. emerge stronger and freer. He emphasized that the promise of America's freedom does not pit oppressors against the oppressed or focus on materialism. According to him, American freedom is the reality that all men and women are made in the image of God, with certain inherent God-given rights just by the virtue of our humanity. Christina Kim, NTD News.
Coming up, the state of Michigan may have more registered voters than the number of people eligible to vote there. That's as an analysis shows more than 10,000 dead people have cast ballots in that state. And with media outlets stopping the live stream broadcast of President Donald Trump and Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany, accusations of media censorship are growing. We speak to the president of the Organization for Justice and Equality for his take on the issue.
Are you looking for a news source that does not spin the truth, doesn't push any false narratives, and instead presents you with the facts and lets you make up your own mind? Then go to readepic.com and try the Epic Times newspaper for yourself. It's pure honest journalism that's based in traditional values.
The state of Michigan may have more registered voters in the 2020 election than its voting age population. That's as an analysis shows more than 10,000 deceased people have cast ballots in the state.
The state of Michigan is showing an incredibly high voter registration rate. That's according to calculations based on census and state voting data. The state's population is about 9.9 million as of July last year. An estimation of its 2020 population by a World Population Review is just over 10 million. Census data shows that the state has just under 80% of its population over the age of 18. Unless the state's age group changed dramatically in less than a year, its voting age population should be around 7.8 million. But according to the state's Voter Information Center, there are over 8.1 million registered voters in the 2020 election. That makes the state's voter registration rate over 100%, indicating that there are about 240,000 more registered voters than the state's voting population. That hasn't taken into account that some of the population are immigrants who haven't been naturalized into U.S. citizens. And this may not be a single case. A research by government watchdog Judicial Watch alleges that 353 U.S. counties in 29 states have their voter registration rates exceeding 100%. That's about 1.8 million more registered voters than eligible voting citizens. The study collected the most recent registration data posted online by the states themselves. Meanwhile, more than 10,000 people confirmed or suspected dead have returned their mail-in ballots to vote in Michigan. That's according to analysis of state election data. The analysis was provided by Big Data Poll to NTD's sister media, the Epoch Times. It shows that about 9,500 voters confirmed dead through the Social Security Death Index are marked in the state's mail voting database as having returned ballots. In addition, another nearly 2,000 are 100 years old or more and aren't listed as non-living centenarians. The data indicates that somebody else was trying to vote on behalf of these people. Michigan Secretary of State spokesperson told the Epoch Times that ballots of voters who have died are rejected in Michigan, even if the voter cast an absentee ballot and then died before Election Day. But the director of Big Data Poll, Richard Barris, is not convinced, saying that while he is open to the idea that some were rejected, he is not open to any outright dismissal they were all rejected. Democratic nominee Joe Biden leads in Michigan by less than 150,000 votes. The Trump campaign filed a lawsuit in the state to halt vote counting until Republican observers are granted adequate access. Michigan's GOP-led legislature is investigating allegations of election irregularities. Penny Zhou, NTD News.
Several media outlets have cut short live streams of 2 Trump administration press conferences. This after social media outlets have been criticized for censoring the circulation of certain political speech. NTD's Christina Kim spoke to the president of Organization for Justice and Equality about the trend and its impact on the American people.
Several media outlets like ABC, CBS, and USA Today have recently terminated live stream broadcasting of President Donald Trump and his administration. On November 5th, President Trump was discussing allegations of election irregularities when he was cut off by a variety of media anchors. Lester Holt from NBC told viewers that they had to cut away because the president had made a number of false allegations. Most recently, on November 9th, Fox News cut off a press conference where Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany spoke about election integrity. She detailed allegations of irregularities happening in Michigan and Pennsylvania. After cutting the briefing short, Fox News anchor Neil Cavuto said,
"Unless she has more details to back that up, I can't in good countenance continue showing you this."
We spoke to Frank Lee, the president of Organization for Justice and Equality, for his take on the matter. He said media agencies in interrupting live streams are acting like government-run media in a dictatorship.
And what they did was actually shameful and is censorship and affecting our democracy to a large extent. The professional way to handle this is to just broadcast the press conference and ask questions at the end or to refute him afterwards.
Lee challenged the justification that networks could and should stop broadcast on the claim that the speakers lacked evidence. Referencing the pending lawsuits, he questioned if these anchors had read and understood all of the legal claims to be able to determine if there truly was not enough evidence of irregularities and fraud. He went on to say that the role of the media is to show the reasons of both sides and let the viewers judge and make their own decisions, not to impose or dictate viewpoints to the public. We also spoke to Orleen Kurla, an author and president of the nonprofit Eagle Forum's California division. She said she was outraged at what she called disrespect shown by reporters.
What a shameful display that is to the rest of the world of what kind of reporters we have here in the United States. Incivility and disrespect does nothing but demean the person from whence it is coming. So this is just a reflection on these reporters.
Kurla added it's not within the right of the media to predetermine the validity of claims and then control whether or not the public gets to see the information.
And they believe that anyone that does not go along with them obviously does not deserve to be heard.
The key principle is that we want to be able to live in a democracy without censorship. And that's why we got to really voice our strong opposition to this type of practice.
Christina Kim, NTD News.
Coming up, hundreds of million-dollar Chinese companies are in severe debt and filing for bankruptcy. This due to the economic fallout caused by the CCP virus pandemic. And over 300 million Chinese people have quit the Chinese Communist Party and related organizations online. And Slovakia passed a law defining the Communist Party as a criminal organization. That and more after the break.